Welcome to Table for 92, element number 61, Promethium. It's number 61 because it has exactly 61 protons within its nucleus. For Promethium, we're cooking up the most American barbecue sauce ever, Jack Daniel's, Tabasco, and Coca-Cola barbecue sauce on some nice pork ribs in honor of the Oak Ridge Laboratory in Tennessee, where Promethium was discovered. Promethium was the second naturally occurring element to be discovered in the United States. But in a lot of ways, I think it's the most American element ever found. We here in the US came pretty late to the game of discovering elements. Like, by the time we got around to it and decided, to put a ridiculous amount of money and science into this research, almost all of the naturally occurring elements had already been discovered, and a few of the man-made ones too, actually. That just shows you how far behind we were. So, Promethium was discovered right at the end of World War II. There was a lot of research into radioactive stuff for good reasons. Had to keep those damn Nazis from finding it first. And while we eventually did figure out nuclear weapons, it also led to a bunch of adjacent finds they may not have intentionally been looking for. You know how it is, like, the greatest discoveries are always accidents. This thing is genius. I got it from Argentina, but yeah, it allows you to flip or turn over ribs or whatever you're cooking, so you get that like really nice low and slow smoky flavor going on. And yeah, because I find Promethium to be the most American element ever discovered, this will be the most American barbecue sauce ever created. I've traveled all over the world, and the 3 American products you can find no matter what anywhere in the world are Jack Daniel's, Coca-Cola, and Tabasco. No matter what, you can find those 3 things anywhere in the world, even in countries where alcohol is forbidden. I guarantee you there's some Jack Daniel's floating around. So, to start, we're gonna make a Coca-Cola syrup. This is the sweetener for the barbecue sauce. Basically, you're gonna just be reducing Coke under medium heat until like a half a cup is left. For me, I'm using 2 bottles of Mexican Coke. It's got that real cane sugar in it, not that high fructose corn syrup. The best Coke comes from Mexico. It's the American way. I'm still gonna add like 2 tablespoons of brown sugar once the Coke syrup is done though. While Promethium was discovered in Tennessee, it took generations of scientists from all over the world to bring Promethium from being a mere hypothesis to scientific theory. Promethium is part of the Lanthanide group of elements that run from 57 to 71 on the periodic table, also known as the rare earth elements, originally named so because of their perceived scarcity, but in reality, a lot of the rare earth elements are quite common. It just takes a whole lot of energy to extract them from the minerals they're found in. On top of that, the rare earth elements are often bound to minerals that are highly radioactive, so it's more about finding sources of rare earth elements that are inexpensive and safe to extract. That's what kind of makes them rare. But Promethium required extra attention to discover. It's one of a handful of elements that are not found in nature. I know you might be thinking this is Table for 92. We go over the 92 naturally occurring elements with an amazing food pairing that more or less has something to do with the element. Well, if you saw the episode on technetium, where I made a wonderful pasta alla norma since it was discovered in Sicily, technetium is also not found naturally in the world anymore. Promethium in the same predicament. These 2 elements have no stable isotopes, and therefore they are subject to radioactive decay, meaning the elements technetium and promethium were once found on Earth naturally, but have since decayed into other elements over the billions of years. This is evident in their names. Technetium comes from the Greek technikos, for artificial or created, while promethium comes from Greek mythology, specifically from Prometheus, who stole fire from the gods and gave it to us lowly humans. And for that crime, he was punished with eternal torment by having an eagle peck out his liver every day until the end of time. So in both cases, these elements were named after something they, weren't supposed to have. And though we're not supposed to have them, humans can't help but persist and bring back what was lost, in this case, due to radioactive decay. So yeah, it took a long time for both technetium and especially promethium to be found. You have to remember that when the first periodic table was put together in the 1800s, there were only about half of the known elements on the table, and there was no idea about radioactivity. They didn't know about it. So a lot had to occur for the discovery of promethium to happen. The first time there was really a hypothesis of the existence of promethium happened in 1902. A Czech chemist named Bohuslav Browna suggested there should be an element in between neodymium and samarium because these two elements, like while similar, did not have that kind of relationship that two elements right next to each other on the periodic table ought to have. And of course, being so difficult to isolate, there were two instances over the next couple decades that saw Italian and then American scientists claim to have found the elusive 61st element. Both findings were later deemed non-replicable and dismissed. You know, it's got to be able to be replicated for it to be scientific, and it wasn't. So, however, if the Italian team had been correct, number 61 had been named Florentium after Florence, and the American team would have named their element Illinium after Illinois. There's so many times where elements were thought to be discovered and then named only to be discredited later. You know, I'll make a list of them all someday. It's pretty extensive. I mean, like hundreds of names that have been tossed away over time. Finally, though, right at the end of World War II, American scientists at the Oak Ridge Laboratory were able to isolate promethium. This team was led by Dr. Charles Croel. As I mentioned before, this was a direct byproduct of the search for the atomic bomb. So it was a side effect of one of the original uranium reactors used to make the first bomb used to create plutonium. Dr. Croel wanted to name it Clintonium after the local Clinton laboratories they worked in, which probably would have been one of the most boring names on the periodic table. Thankfully, his wife Grace also thought the name Clintonium was dumb and proposed instead Promethium, as she felt their discovery was akin to stealing fire from the gods, finding the already decayed element that had been refused to be found for so long. So thanks for saving that name, Grace. You might be the true hero here, but it makes me proud to be an American. Our scientists and their families decided we were most comparable to the Titan that stole fire from the gods and gave it to the people. You know, it may be our misguided sense of greatness, whatever. We found it, we get to name it. Na. I find this like a beautiful, almost allegory to the discovery and unfortunate application of nuclear weapons. You know, we stole the light of creation, the very power that generated our universe, and like Prometheus, we are now tormented daily of the reminder of our creation that can destroy all life on Earth. Being radioactive, promethium can be stimulated into glowing in the dark, which is awesome. So they thought it would be a great idea in the 1950s to replace the more dangerous radium in luminous applications, but turned out to be, you know, dangerous on its own. It is radioactive. After promethium's discovery, you know, it was like the 40s, 50s. It was a really optimistic time in the field of nuclear power, which is kind of hard to believe today. But like, there was a great hope in the 50s that promethium could be used in small-scale batteries. Like, there were even hopes that you could use these small-scale batteries in powering entire homes. Try selling that today. Small nuclear-powered batteries in the home. Yeah, like, little tough to sell. That, of course, did not happen, but there is still ongoing research in the field. All these new breakthroughs in nuclear fusion I keep on reading about, it does have me kind of enthusiastic about the future, but in this case, we're once again stealing the power of the universe from the gods, and hopefully we use it for good this time. So, you know, I think it's better to cook the sauce and then let it sit overnight, so that's what this guy's from. But yeah, this is just the most American meal ever with the most American barbecue sauce ever, celebrating the most American element ever. So let's try it out. Oh, oh, that's good. Oh, I feel like I have all of America in my mouth. Thank you. See you next time.